House Freedom Caucus member, Congressman David Schweikert, with us right now on the president calling his caucus out. What did you think of that, Congressman?
You know, look, I accept everyone is stressed, and understand I'm one of the outliers. I have a seat on Ways and Means Committee. I'm a founding member of Freedom Caucus, and I'm a yes on the health care bill. So I have also a personal responsibility of trying to move constantly between the right and the left of our conference, trying to close that gap and understand what brings people together.
Well, how many were yes, like you, of the caucus? So we're told that the overwhelming majority, virtually all, save yourself, a couple of others, were against it.
Yeah, I wouldn't say virtually all. It was the majority. But you also must understand there was a fairly substantial block on the left side. And
True.
as often happens in these sorts of negotiations, when you move something for Freedom Caucus that they believed would be effective in lowering premiums and opening up markets, some of our more moderate friends were concerned we weren't covering certain people's needs. So there was this constant sort of bell curve where the ends, the tails on that curve were sort of moving the agenda.
So where does the agenda stand now?
I actually think we're making progress. But remember, it's been 1 week of working through a couple things. People's hurt feelings, people now who do not sit on Ways and Means or Energy and Commerce, so they haven't been bathing in the Obamacare meltdown that's happening around the country and what's going on in the math. And they're just, this last couple of weeks was really their first introduction to, I think, many of these complexities. So you have a combination of moving policy, moving people's understanding, and then listening to where their concerns are.
Well, could you give me a time frame on this? I mean, it's a gut call, I understand, but
yeah.
What do you think?
I actually can't give that to you. But for many of us, we're sort of trying to work on this sort of unified theory of you need the health care reform, particularly on that Medicaid and our individual market. At the same time, we're working on the math of big-time tax reform. At the same time, you have an overlay. Why do you need them
together? If it's so onerous to come to agreement on the health care thing, and there seems to be a little bit more unity on the tax care thing, why do you need to sort of, keep digging a hole on this health care thing?
Yeah, actually, I might give you a human dynamic portion. And look, I'm someone that's more comfortable behind his calculator than often talking to people, and I'm trying to work on that. But it's the joys of what we often are.
Right.
But we've learned so much about where individuals' members are and the needs for their district. And that same information, that same sort of human intelligence is being moved into how you craft a pretty bold tax reform agenda. And so they really do sort of run parallel to each other, at least informationally. I think for those in Ways and Means, we just need to do our work on how you put together the big tax reform package, but you don't abandon trying to put the health care debate to bed.
Do you think some of your members, I'm not talking about you because you were open to voting on this health care thing, even though you didn't like it fully, are a little hypocritical on this, that they had problems with it, some features of it, and whether it was going to compound the amount of money the government spends and even add to our deficit? Yet we just hear from Mark Meadows, who ostensibly runs the caucus, saying when it comes to tax cuts, they needn't be revenue neutral. It sounds a little like talking out of both ends of your mouth.
Well, look, the health care bill actually helped deficit, and it also provided a substantial amount of tax cuts, stimulus to the economy and society. So from a pure economics driver side, those were really important, and I thought we had a way to still cover those folks in our population that needed the help. I'm on the other side. I actually am very, very concerned of the demographic curve the United States is now in with the baby boomer retirement. And you have to maximize economic growth without waking up a decade from now and having blown up the deficit.
Well, apparently the CBO shares your concern, sir. Already they're talking about within another 30 years our debt to GDP could be about 150% of GDP, and it's versus about 75, 77% now. So the direction doesn't look good.
No, and if interest rates ever moved against us, substantial economic slowdown, those numbers get even uglier.
Absolutely.
So you're balancing lots of things, but I need you to think, and I know this is complicated for just a few minutes, a sort of a unified theory. Health reform, tax reform, regulatory reform, and at some point you also have to deal with other realities, immigration issues. You also are going to one day here, hopefully in the near future, also have an honest conversation about what's happening in the mandatory spending, the entitlements, and they all come together in sort of a unified theory of economic growth and survival for this country.
Do you worry, though, that your party doesn't have its act together and that, you know, whatever you say about the fundamental issues you address, which were well laid out, sir, that with the divisions all within the party, whether it's in their own caucus, you guys are grabbing defeat from the jaws of victory?
We'll get there. Look, the legislative process is always filled with these fits and stops and starts. It is just the nature of doing complicated things with complicated math and the human element.
Do you worry that some folks polled on the subject don't think you guys are up to that task?
Look, Congress has never, in its couple hundred years, had a real high favorability, partially because it is the nature, what is the old sausage-making jokes? The reality of it is, look, I'm from the West, so I'm more of a libertarian, conservative Republican. If you're from other parts of the country, your constituency is very different than mine. How do I respect that, understand the differences, and then find a policy that brings us together?
All right, Congressman, thank you very much for taking the time.
Thank you.